Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And last week I mentioned I was going to do a few reviews about wrestling movies in honor of WrestleMania. Unfortunately, I ran out of time, so I'm going to do a couple of those reviews this week. The movie that I'm reviewing today is the 2023 film, The Iron Claw. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the name of the venue/building that Fritz von Erich owned? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in the film The Iron Claw, we follow the lives and deaths of the Von Erich brothers, and of course, their historical impact on wrestling. This is a true story that is based off of the actual Von Erich family and is primarily seen through the eyes of Kevin Von Erich, the only surviving brother. We witness the ups and downs of his career. We watch as he finds love, gets married, and of course, eventually has children of his own. We also see him endure through each of the horrible and unfortunate deaths of each of his brothers. And all the while, he is still trying to gain the respect of his father, Fritz von Erich. This movie was written and directed by Sean Durkin. Both Holt Michelani and Maura Tierney did a great job as Fritz and Doris von Erich. But the real praise really needs to go to Harris Dickinson, Zac Efron, Stanley Simons, and Jeremy Allen White for portraying the Von Erich brothers. Which, by the way, both Efron and White got absolutely jacked for these roles. Now, if you've never been into wrestling, there's a high possibility you've never heard of the Von Erich family before. But is there a possibility that you've heard of the Von Erich curse? Unfortunately, all of the brothers except for Kevin Von Erich perished early on in their lives. The first child born to Fritz and Doris was Jack Jr. He was electrically shocked and then drowned in a puddle at the age of 6 in 1959. He is mentioned earlier on in the film and even makes a brief appearance near the end. The next to pass was David, who died from enteritis in a Tokyo hotel at 25 in 1984. That sequence is mentioned in the film. After David, it was Mike, who overdosed on Placidil at 23 in 1987. This sequence is partially shown and partially alluded to. Then we have Chris. Chris unfortunately shot himself in the head at 21 in 1991. Chris is the only brother who is not seen or even mentioned in the film. Now, he was in the original script, but they felt there was already so much tragedy, and unfortunately, since his story was so similar to Carrie, they just decided to cut him out. That then brings us to the final brother, Carrie, who shot himself in the chest in the family yard at 33 in 1993. Carrie and Kevin were the only brothers who made it into the WWF. Now, whether or not this was considered part of the curse, Fritz von Erich died of cancer at 68 in 1997. There are many emotional moments that the character of Kevin goes through throughout the film. Director Sean Durkin told Efron, though, to hold all of his tears for the final scene with Kevin and his boys. So if you are a big fan of wrestling, there may be some familiar faces you see throughout the movie, not just in characters but also in actors. Some of the big name characters that show up are Ric Flair, Harley Race, Bruiser Brody, the Fabulous Freebirds, and then of course there were also some actors that were actually wrestlers. For instance, Chavo Guerrero Jr. was not only the stunt coordinator for this film, but also played the Sheik. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, also known as MJF, made an appearance. Ryan Nemeth played Gino Hernandez. Silas Mason was Terry Bam Bam Gordy. And Brady Pierce was Michael P.S. Hayes. The character of Pam is played by Lily James, but did you know that the role almost went to Elizabeth Olsen? The film, for the most part, felt very grounded. The afterlife scene near the end of the film, in some ways I liked it and in some ways I didn't, but here's an interesting fact related to that scene. There's a sequence when Carrie is riding the boat towards his brothers and places a coin on the seat next to him. This is actually the same coin that was flipped as to whether he or Kevin would face Ric Flair. This is also supposed to be a reference, though, to the Greek mythology where you paid Charon, the boatman, for your passage to the afterlife. There's a quick scene where Kevin and Fritz are watching Carrie in the WWF. The video that's shown on the television is the real Carrie Von Erich, who at the time was nicknamed the Texas Tornado. This movie was filmed in Louisiana, but takes place entirely in Texas. So when it comes to the film The Iron Claw, this is definitely a story that needed to be told. Now, mind you, it's not just good because it's a very dark and very tragic story, but the Von Erichs had a huge impact on wrestling, especially in the South. Now, with this being based on reality, I do understand that they can't obviously add tons of stuff to make the entire movie really exciting. So, there definitely were points in the film that were very slow and not much was going on, but it was still a great movie. So, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. If you did enjoy this film, other movies I recommend checking out are The Wrestler, Queen of the Ring, Fighting with My Family, and Ali. Now it's time to answer the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What is the name of the venue/building that Fritz von Erich owned? So that location was known as the Sportatorium, which was widely known throughout Texas and through most of the United States. It closed in 1998 and was demolished in 2003. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's any films that you think I should do a trivia review for, feel free to mention them in the comments.